PvP has never felt worse, and here's why. Destiny PvP is not really in a good place right now. I don't know if you've noticed, if you've looked up Trials Report or just been in the competitive playlist in general. It's pretty bad. The meta's not fun, but the number one reason is probably because of certain classes. I'll get into that in a second. The first symptom of a meta that's being like bombarded by a specific class, just look at the weapons. Right now, the weapons consist of Dead Man's Tale, No Time to Explain, and just things that generally play the lane game. That's not necessarily a bad thing until you start looking at what caused that. The reason why people are using these weapons is because they are fighting an uphill battle against a specific thing, that being the Titan. People are using things like Dead Man's Tale and No Time to Explain, playing the lane game because they're forced to. Because right now there's no rushing, the game is pretty slow. And all of that is because of Titans with Sightons. So let's go ahead and talk about that. Right now, walls are OP. Titans right now have like a 15-second cooldown on their wall, so they get their wall back before their wall is gone. Partially, this is due to them not having any kind of internal cooldown on walls while the wall is up. I think walls could do with an internal timer to create a little bit of a gap between walling. It's okay to have a short timer because class abilities are important, but you want to make sure that people aren't getting their wall back before their wall's gone. Titans also have their storm grenades. Storm grenades are just notoriously busted. They follow you everywhere. They're just a complete carry when you throw them. They're ridiculous. It's the only grenade you have to respect in the game other than like trip mines. Also, there's this fun little bug that's happening right now. I don't know if it's an internet thing. I haven't done too much research into it, but right now there's a few instances where you'll be shooting someone's thing and it'll pop up immune numbers. I should never shoot a Titan wall and get immune numbers. I'm just, point blank period. Never should happen. And of course, one-shot melees. I mean, Titans have on and off had one-shot melees. One-shot melees, they're pretty annoying, but for the most part, they are the brawler class. They should have a little bit of an edge over the other two classes up close. Warlocks need a rework. They truly do. This is coming from a Warlock main's perspective, so take that with a grain of salt. I think Warlocks right now are in a pretty bad spot. Warlocks need some love. I really hope they bring some in Lightfall, because right now, Void is pretty much a Devour bot, Solar is a Heat Rises bot, and Arc is an Electric Slide bot. Their identities are kind of gone, and people talk about this all the time, identity being the main point with Warlocks. I think a few things can be done to bring them closer to neutral. I think Solar is fine. I just think it needs a buff to Dawnblade, not like damage, tracking, or anything like that, or even duration, honestly, because there was a time where Dawnblade was super strong and kind of a best-in-slot super because it extended itself. I think it was Bottom Tree Dawnblade, I'm pretty sure. I think that Dawnblade just needs to have its super cooldown a little bit lowered. Right now, I think Dawnblade sits at 1025, which is one of the highest cooldowns on a super, and I don't think it's that good. I don't think it deserves to have a cooldown of that extent. So maybe bring that back a little bit. Other than that, the class feels great. This goes back to the identity point. I think that Void needs a better identity. Right now, it's kind of just Devour the class. You have the easiest access to Devour. You have some cool stuff here and there, but the main point of the class is to have Devour on board. You don't have any like visual spectacle other than Child of the Old Gods, and Child of the Old Gods just gets blown up. Unless you get that immune bug, of course. I actually think that Void is the best subclass for Warlocks at the moment, unironically, but they don't have an identity. They need something that kind of makes them feel different. Don't even get me started on Arc. The only reason people are playing Arc right now is for the Electric Slide, and it's because it can cheese like 3 people at once. It is by far the most OP ability in our kit at the moment as Warlocks, but it feels a little bit like the class doesn't have much else. They have the Arc Traces, which is interesting and all, but outside of that, they kind of just, if you're playing Arc, you're spamming the melee ability. That's all you're doing. I think that they should do something interesting with the rifts per class, something sort of like Child of the Old Gods, but do something specific for each one, because that would grant more identity, and I think that would be pretty cool. I also think some of the aspects need to be looked at. Some of them are pretty weak. some of them being stronger, much stronger than the other ones, leading to people not even changing their aspects. I don't think I've changed my aspects on specific subclasses for a long time because certain ones are just way stronger. Moving on, hunters. Hunters have issues, but I believe that they're actually in an interesting spot. Right now, hunters have busted things. They have things like Liar's Handshake, Wormhusk Crown, Stompies. People are always complaining about these things because nichely, they are pretty busted. But I don't think they're particularly busted other than those like niche OP moments. Hunter's strongest parts in their respective class is Stasis as a whole. It's probably their strongest one because Silence and Squall is really strong. The melee shurikens are really good. And they also have Shatter Dive, which is a really good tool for getting out of harm's way. So in general, Stasis is probably their strongest tool. The only thing that I would really consider OP is probably the throwing knives, because if you've seen like clips of people hitting throwing knife kills, some of them are ridiculous. I don't think that they should magnetize as much as they do. And sometimes you'll see things like crazy, like a knife bouncing behind somebody and completely changing its trajectory to bend over to someone's head, resulting in a kill. I don't think any ability should be that aimbot, ever. Right now, Crucible has kind of evolved to accompany this new version of Titan that we see in PvP. When the meta changes to fit something, that's usually bad. There are a few instances where the meta has kind of shifted toward a specific build because that build is just so strong. But this is like a pretty dramatic instance of that. And most times something is done, something is dealt with, and something is changed, and the meta shifts dramatically after that. I think this might be one of those moments. But yeah, when the meta changes to fit something, it needs to be fixed. Nothing should have like a particular stranglehold on a meta. So my predictions. I think in Lightfall, I think that they're going to probably do something about Warlocks because people have been complaining about it for a while. If not, that's totally fine. We might see minor changes here and there, or maybe Strand is going to be super OP for Warlocks. That could also change things. And maybe everyone's running around as a Warlock in Crucible for a while. I think that Titans are probably gonna get snipped in some way. I think they're either gonna have their walls nerfed, resilience benefits nerfed, or they're gonna just have something done in general about cooldowns on their whole kit. Right now, resilience is probably one of the most valuable stats, if not the most valuable stat, and it happens to make their walls come back in 15 seconds. So that's pretty rough. So I do think that Titans are probably going to see a nerf, and I feel for my Titan mains because Titans have never been more fun to play, but man, they need to be changed. I think that Hunters might see minor changes, but right now I think they're in a pretty good spot, so I wouldn't want them to change it too drastically because if they do, you might see something kind of OP creep up again. But we'll see. We'll see what happens when Strand graces all three classes in Lightfall. But yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on the matter. Let me know in the comments what you think about the general meta, if you like Fortnite or not, and what you think should be changed in each relative class. Anyways, much love. Take care. Peace out.